Some lady rolled down her window, yelled obscenities at me, flipped me off, then crashed into a pole going 40 miles per hour. What instant karma in driving have you guys had? Had him butthole in a Hummer riding my bus at the speed limit, down a steep, snowy hill, in the right lane, in the middle of winter, 20-30 seconds away from a light that clearly had less than 15 seconds left before turning. After about 5 seconds of being 2 feet from my bumper, he decides to change lanes and floor it in an attempt to cover the last 20 seconds of ground in the 10 seconds left. About 200 feet short of the intersection, the light turns red and the moron finally decides it would be a good time to start slowing down. He slid through the red light, clipped the rear end of a tractor trailer, and took out the traffic light at the far end of the intersection. For bonus marks, it turned out there was a cop a few hundred feet behind us, and, being well uphill of us, had a nice clear view of the idiot weaving through traffic and accelerating to nearly twice the speed limit towards a light they could not possibly make. I was pulling out of a parallel parking spot in front of a red light, 20 feet ahead, with cars stopped ahead and behind me. The car behind me waved me in. Such a gentleman, but the BMW sports car behind him was in a hurry, so he speeds up and around the car in front, cutting me off, all the while giving me the cockiest look like haha you're chump, because he managed to get one car length ahead. While he is sneering, he hits the Aston Martin in front of him, hard. I was half overwhelmed, half dying of laughter. Justice like that is truly rare. Wannabe hits the person he's trying to be. Just a nice in his face reminder of what car he doesn't have. God, justice is sweet. There is a busy road through town where I live. It's normally 2 lanes, but over the winter the right lane was shut and the speed limit was reduced to 15 miles per hour while they laid new sewer pipe. I was driving the posted speed limit when a lady in a BMW gets behind me and starts waving her arms and flashing her lights. When we got out of the roadworks, she flipped me off and stepped on the gas, accelerating to 45-55 mph. She was still accelerating when she passed the cop parked in front of the local elementary school. It was a school day, so I think that ticket was a large one. I frequently go to this park to mountain bike or road bike. It has a long loop that's only open in one direction to vehicles. The other is for pedestrians. On a nice summer evening, I am driving home when a car pulls in going the wrong way. I honk at him and point to the one-way sign. He flicks me off and yells something about me being a spick. But there is a cop car right behind me, which lights him up immediately. The same thing happened to me basically. I was driving down a 5-lane road, 2 lanes each side and a turning lane, doing 40 meters mph, in a 35 meter mph zone. I usually stick close to the speed limit because this was a major road used a lot and the cops would patrol it. I was doing 40 and getting tailgated by this dude in a Dodge Neon. I drive a 4-wheel drive F150. At one point he was so close to me, I could only see the roof of his car in my rearview mirror over my tailgate. My truck really isn't that tall. He was just really close. I just held my speed at 40. Didn't brake check him, just let him sit there. I could see he was getting pee. I didn't want to slow down because he was so close. The other lane was clear for 300 to 400 yards. I would have happily let him pass me. I just didn't want him to be behind me anymore. Finally he whips into the curb lane. It ended up being a dressed up Neon, with a wing on the back and the big mufflers that make a lot of noise. He pulled up next to me, stared straight at me taking his eyes off the road, screamed butthole and then gunned the engine. Chances are if he had taken a second to actually look at the road, he would have noticed the parked delivery truck in front of him. As he gunned his engine, he basically slammed right into the back of a delivery truck. Me, being the butthole I am, broke out into laughter, then pulled over and walked back to see if he was okay. The Neon had tucked itself underneath the delivery truck, peeling back the hood and mangling the crap out of the front clip. The delivery truck driver saw everything, as did the people further behind me. When the cops showed up, the delivery truck driver called them. He tried to insist that I ran him into the truck. Thankfully some people came to my rescue. Even the cops didn't believe his story. After I talked to the cops, I was free to leave. As I was leaving they were giving him a field sobriety test. I am not sure what happened to him. Driving my dad old trail Jeep back from a barbecue one night, an old 1965 wheels, on a back road, doing about 35 miles per hour. Now, we had this Jeep as a kind of rally support vehicle. Lights all over the place, extra battery and everything. It's about 4 AM, nobody in front or behind us, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere from behind us, comes a whatever sports car. I immediately switch to the right lane, giving him ample space to pass me. Instead of taking the offer, the jerk gets behind me and starts honking and flashing his high beams. This goes on for about a minute, while I try to figure out what exactly is he complaining about, till I figured out he was really just trying to mess up with me. By then, my dad is already half awake, when I instruct my GF to open the glove compartment, flip the 4 top switches and the one on the left. She asks me about it, and I just tell her to do it and see. She starts flipping them, and just as my dad yells from the backseat, "Don't do it," she flips the last one. All of the lights around the center column, 6 on top, 4 each side, plus 4 high beams on the rear bumper, all light up like 1,000 suns, right in front of this jerk's eyes. He slams the brakes so hard his car immediately spins about 720 before regaining control and stopping. She flips the lights off and away we go. He just stood there behind us, half a mile or so, all the way until we got off the road, never again trying to pass us. I was riding my motorcycle down the freeway when some butthole threw half a McDonald's milkshake out of the window, still in its cup. Through some random fluke of physical dexterity, I caught it. It would have hit me in the chest, near enough. I caught up to the guy in traffic a minute later. His sunroof was open, so I returned the cup. Don't throw crap out of your car windows, buttholes. 6 Raw Batty 6 intercepts the cup, drives to the hole, slam dunk for the win. Some snotty high school girl was behind me in a car once, beeping and flashing her lights, apparently complaining that I was going too slow. As soon as the road widened to 2 lanes, she gunned it and went around me, flipping me off as she went past, because apparently I drove the speed limit just to vex her. About 30 seconds later I saw her car pulled over by a cop in an active school zone. She was out of the car being handcuffed. They only arrest if you've been doing an excessively high rate of speed, but in a school zone it doesn't take much. She saw me as I went by going 20 miles per hour. I blew her a kiss. I love that. And I love how blowing a kiss probably offended her more than the middle finger would have, and yet maybe made her think a little too. 1 AM in the middle of town at a stoplight, a nice Mustang pulls up alongside me. I'm in a stock Corolla, and starts revving his engine, calling me a B while his girlfriend was laughing. I ignore him and turn up my music. He peels out, takes off and goes around the bend. That's when I see the cop pull out of a parking lot on side of the road. I slow down and wave to the guy as he is pulled over. He flips me off just as the cop is walking up to his window. Sounds like something straight out of a 90s movie. I'm driving down a main road in my town at about 2 AM. I take the route every day so I know there are cops ahead, so I'm driving about 5 below the limit. Some cockroach decides to blow by me, crossing into oncoming traffic and almost hits an oncoming car. He swerved back as quickly as possible, nearly clipping my front bumper. I look in my rear view and see lights go on. Idiot almost hit a cop. He never decides to slow down at all, speeds up and bam. Out of a parking lot a cop pulls out in front of him and he T-bones the cruiser. Karma at its finest. I hope nothing happened to the other officer that got T-boned. Whoa, good timing. Just got home 15 minutes ago from a 300-mile trip on my motorcycle. I love semis. They are great on the road and I always help them out. Flash my lights to let them in, make sure they can see me etc. So when I saw a car being a dong I pulled up next to them and made the "I'm watching you" gesture. The semi behind me honked in appreciation and not 5 minutes later the same car was refusing to let me pass. 2 trucks blocked her off and cleared a lane to let me pass. I can only assume the truck who had honked at me got on the radio and let everyone know to look out for his little buddy. That is so freaking awesome even if it's bulls. If I had $1 for every time some idiot passes me at 90 plus mph and ends up pulled over 2 miles down the highway, I'd have $8. That means it happened 8 times. I was driving on the highway in the fast lane beside a police car doing the unofficial speed limit of 120 km per hour. so naturally I was matching him. The car on the other side of the cop car was doing the same, so traffic was pretty steady behind us, as everyone usually does 130 km/h on this particular stretch of highway. Suddenly a wild jackass appeared in a crappy Pontiac Sunfire and proceeds to ride my butt for about 3-5 kilometers, then decided to jump over into the high occupancy vehicle HOV lane and guns it. Gun HOV lane has specific spots where you can enter and exit. We had yet to reach one of those. Also, the guy was solo in the car. I look to my right and I just see the cop smile at me, nod, and flip on his lights and take off after the jackass. Couldn't help but smile all the way to work. One day I was driving down the road late at night and a car was riding my butt the whole way with their high beams on. Finally the guy driving past me in a turn lane and sped off into the distance going at least 90. I could see him up ahead when we reached the end of the road, a dead end. I watched as his taillights kept going straight and off the hill on the other side. Zero fricks given. I kept on driving while he was climbing out of his wrecked car in a cornfield. Particular stretch of busy highway, at night. Driving the GF home and a Volvo SUV blows by us like we're standing still. I was already doing about 10 over km/h. NBD. As the Volvo disappears into the distance, I say to the GF, wow, never any cops around when you need them, I guess. Imagine my surprise when the generic American SUV in front of me lights up like a red and blue Christmas tree. Officer takes the Volvo down. It was glorious. It's always safe to assume that any GMC or Chevy SUV is an unmarked cop car. Some guy cut me off once in a roundabout in the most rude way possible, nearly causing me to crash into him. I slammed on my brakes and I was seething with anger. Fast forward 10 minutes later, some other guy, Dodge Master Flex, decides to cut off the first guy, let's call him P-Flaps, off, so they get into this bit of road rage war, trying to cut each other off, and I got caught in the middle. I call the cops because I noticed one of the guys had his kid in the backseat and this was not about to end well. Turned out there was a cop in an unmarked car literally a few cars up ahead of me. He couldn't see what was going on when they radioed him, so he slowed down, letting traffic pass him by as these buttholes are still going on with their stupid testosterone fueled war. The cop pulls over P-Flaps, and another cop pulled over the Dodge Master Flex up ahead. Ha 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 ha. How do y'all like Mahjong now? When I was younger, I saw a cop in an unmarked car run into a convenience store with his gun drawn. I was waiting in the car while my dad was inside the store, and I thought that the cop was a robber. I was scared and worried, but a few moments later my dad walked out with a big grin saying he just saw some guy get arrested. Guy thinks he can beat freeway traffic going 80+ mph down the shoulder. Guy gets pulled over and must then endure the jeering of all the drivers he sped past as they slowly roll by. Oh, and this was the same day I saw the guy shooting up H while driving. Austin. It might have been insulin. Yeah, no. I was driving south on I-684 NY morning rush about 4 years ago. Anyone who knows this road knows that the average speed in the middle lane is 75. 80 if you are going under 80, stay out of the left lane because some butthole in a monster truck is going to ride your tail until you get out of the lane. This morning I was in the left doing around 70. Traffic was extremely heavy and all lanes were moving around the same speed. I was in the end of what I call a pod. Bunch of cars all going the same speed so no one can really pass. I looked in my rear view and see a 2-seat BMW coming up on me real fast. Within seconds he was 3 feet off my bumper leaning on his horn. I knew that slamming on my brake might give me satisfaction. I did not relish the idea of a rear ender, so I just took my foot off the gas and started to coast. This enraged the butthole even more and he pulled out from behind me, cutting someone in the middle lane off and proceeded to cut me off and get in front. I knew he was going to slam his brakes on to teach me a lesson and had already prepared by starting to brake myself. He was half in my lane at about a 30-degree angle when he tramped on the brakes, sending him and his car into a skid across all 3 lanes. Amazingly no one hit him, but when he went off the right shoulder he rolled the beamer. I witnessed this in my rear view. I went to the next exit and did a U-turn and got to the accident scene. A NY state trooper was already there. The moron was sitting in the grass next to his wrecked car. I told the trooper the story as to what happened and he said they would call. I never heard anything from them. I bought my car off Craigslist. It had a random little red button installed next to the radio. Took me forever to figure out what it did. If I hold down the button, it turns on the brake lights. So convenient when somebody is riding my butt. I was driving home from work, basically downtown. I lived probably 10 miles away in the suburbs at the time. I'm at a red light about to get onto the highway and I look down to my iPod to change artists or something, and there is a cop car in the other lane about a car behind me. I look up and see him looking at me. Oh crap, I think. He probably thinks I was looking at my phone. The light turns green. I turn onto the highway, and as I expect he follows me. I'm expecting to be pulled over here, but I'm not. Instead the cop car gets right behind me. I'm doing the speed limit to the decimal here. Hands are 10 and 2 and keeping in the lines. He just rides my butt. The whole goddamn way home, he rides my butt. We make eye contact through the mirror a few times and I know he's running my plates or something. Maybe looking for an excuse to pull me over. I'm not sure. Anyway, we go about 10 miles or so on the highway to my exit and I get off. So does he. Still riding my butt. I pull up to a light with a right turn only lane next to me, which he gets into. He pulls by my car and gives me a good look. I'm looking straight ahead, trying not to notice. This part happens fast. My light turns green. He is about 2 cars ahead of me in the right turn only lane with some cars behind him. He takes the right turn and immediately moves to take a left turn into the gas station across the street. I think so he can get back onto the road that I'm on and probably pull me over. I turn to my friend who's in the passenger seat and say, he's finally going to pull me over. Right as I'm moving through the intersection, he's making his left turn and wham, he's hit from the side. He was so busy keeping his eyes on me that he cut this woman off and she nailed the side of his car. Moving pretty fast too. I couldn't believe it, and my friend thought I was some sort of dark wizard. Well, I was putting some honey mustard on my chicken burger from BK while on a small road going about 15 miles per hour and hit a piece of metal on the road. Dropped my chicken burger after I hit it. Karma for not paying attention and driving dangerously. Ruined burger and a flat tire. Learned my lesson. At a friend's shop I was stopping by and a lady's minivan was in for service and she had literally no brakes, popped line and no pads all the way around. She refused the service even when offered a largely discounted price. It was then we noticed that she had her kids with her, all 5 of them. My friend kept her busy with her car on the rack for about half an hour while I called the police like he asked me to. In Illinois, shops cannot hold a vehicle hostage because it is not road safe. The cop pulls up outside and she got about 1-2 miles away when she was pulled over. On top of her ticket she had to pay $140 for the tow and my friend gave her no discount for the service. She turned around and tried to sue him but with the liability paperwork basically saying she knew what she was doing was dangerous and unlawful. It didn't get very far in court. Upvote for helping those kids get out of immediate danger. After work one day I was going down the road on my way home and there was a Dodge Charger riding my butt. My vehicle of choice that day was my Ram 1500. As I was going down the road he proceeded to tailgate me so badly that I could barely see the top of his windshield, so I gave him a nice friendly brake check. What's he do after that? Gets closer. So I then proceeded to take my foot off the gas, slowed down from the speed limit to roughly 10 miles an hour and then came to a complete stop when I got to where I needed to turn. Once I made my granny turn, the guy in the Charger floored it, burning out in the process, fingers out the window and all, and got pulled over not even 30 feet away. Oh, I am sorry about, well, you know what. 2 cars with dealer tags, one Passat and one A4, are obviously racing and cut me off. About a mile down the road all traffic is stopped and notice the 2 cars crashed at the bottom of a ditch. I speed. I was going a good clip in the left lane, and saw a cop up ahead. The big bald jackass who didn't want to go past me when he has the chance, got really offended. I slowed down. He started getting up on my tail, flashing his lights, and flipping me off. This is all within 35 seconds of me seeing the cop and slowing down. He cuts off someone in the right lane, and speeds past me flipping me off. Right when I see his brake lights go bright red. A second later, the cop's lights go on. But got what he was asking for. Not that great of a story. A good lesson to always pay attention when someone slows down to the speed limit for seemingly no reason. I'm driving down the freeway in SoCal and nearly get run off the road by an butthole who's texting while driving. Literally before the final syllable of mother sucker escapes my mouth, a highway patrol races by me and pulls him over. Never before or after have I seen karma strike so quickly. My girlfriend and I were driving through the Columbia River Gorge right after Christmas last year and it was just pea rain, like biblical flood raining. Trucks would pass us splashing enough water on the windshield to destroy the already minuscule amount of visibility we had. It was white knuckle. Anyway, we're going slowish and this Ashatina Mercedes passes us doing at least 80. Speed limit is 55-60 and splashes the frick out of us and keeps going. About 30 minutes later we see his car up on top of a guardrail, completely totaled. I was driving along a while back, going around the speed limit or a little over, 55-60 mph, when a truck came up behind me and then passed. I figured it was no big deal. It's a one lane each way, but it's also kind of rural so generally people go kind of quick and will pass if they need to. A few miles up the road though I came up to a stoplight and lo and behold the same truck was at the stoplight. I thought it was kind of funny that the driver had been in such a rush but not gotten any farther along than I had. What ticked me off though is that upon the light turning green, the driver just guns it, and the speed limit dropped significantly after the light, and started weaving in and out of traffic, generally just driving kind of a sholly and recklessly. Of course a cop ended up pulling out of a side street and immediately pulled him over. My uncle has a saying specifically for these people: see ya at the next red light. When I was 18, I was coming back from summer school in my mom's car. I took an extra class before university and some lady was coming out of a plaza, cutting me off completely and I had to swerve around her, missing her by probably 1 meter. Just imagine a dolled up Italian lady talking on a cell phone in a Mercedes, just not caring about anybody else driving but herself. I don't think she even noticed she cut me off, cause she didn't apologize or seem even that worried afterwards. Eventually she pulled in front of me, speeding like crazy, and we were going down the same street. All of a sudden I see her accelerate and slam on her brakes immediately after. I hear a loud thud and see her slam in the back of this guy's car. The guy's SUV had minor bumper damage while the lady's Mercedes was pretty fricked up. I have never felt such satisfaction in my life before. This is not funny, but rather sad. I was driving with my mom when I was about 14 and we were on the highway. There's this crazy guy on one of those little crotch rocket motorbikes who's being a complete dong and is obviously drunk and maybe a bit coked out. Well, he is going extremely fast and weaving in and out of traffic, being disrespectful, and just being a downright butthole. We came to a red light and he pulled up next to my mom's car. I rolled down my window and attempted to yell over his revving engine that maybe he should slow down. He looks at me and says, "Frick off, kid." Well, fast forward a mile or so and I am looking out the window thinking about this douche and why people like him exist. I then see a crowd of people at the side of the road and tell my mom to stop and pull over. We got out of the car and lo and behold is the guy, lying in a pool of his own blood. At first I was shocked just from seeing the lifeless body, but then I started to think that I may have brought this upon him with my mind and I was scared. I told my mom this and she just said I was crazy and there was nothing to worry about. All in all it was a weird day and a strange story. Sounds like you gave that guy one last chance to save his own life and he ignored it. My partner and I were pulling up to a four-way intersection in our large work truck. Opposite us was a city bus, and traffic in the cross lanes. Light turned green and we proceeded through the intersection. Bus slowly turns to the right, our left, and is halfway through the turn when from our right, a cross traffic jerk decides to blow the light. He passes in front of our bumper by inches, strikes the front fender of the bus, and to top it off, city cop car was waiting at the light heading in the opposite direction. Newspaper said guy was arrested for failure to obey sign or signal, failure to have a valid license, failure to have insurance, public endangerment, reckless driving, and there was a warrant out for not showing up to court. It was glorious. I was sitting at a stoplight and this guy pulled up right on my butt, then started honking at me. The light was red so I was fuming. Typical road raging me, being honest here. Rolled down my window and flipped him off. I realized he was just probably having a bad day, but all I could think was, what an butthole. Then as the light turned green I began accelerating especially slow as to pee him the frick off. He then pulled around me and floored it. I was soon after greeted with the beautiful image of his car pulled over on the side of the road with a cloud of white smoke rising from his car and a ripped to shred tire. It was a wonderful day. I was driving to a buddy's house to play some basketball. I got stopped at a light and the moment it turns green the guy behind me honks his horn and starts waving his arms. I roll my eyes and think say hello to the speed limit. I set my cruise at 35 miles per hour. He's stuck behind me for around a mile due to the windy road. He finally passes me giving me a much expected finger to which I'll laugh and continue on my jolly way. I go around the next corner to see him being pulled over. When I was young I was a total douche. I was 19 years old and riding with friends in Chicago, my first time in the city. I was drunk and my sober friend was driving. I was with 3 chicks in the back of a car and I was getting laughs by yelling things at people as we drove by. I saw this huge Amazonian black chick and, this being 2003 that one movie Deuce Bigalow was fresh in my mind. I yelled at Sahuji out the window. We literally stopped at a red light less than a second after I said B. She was like N what you say and I was trying to roll up the window because power windows were not standard on the 2003 Malibu. I stared straight ahead terrified for my life as this woman pounded on the window screaming she would beat my butt. I was praying the light would turn green especially when she took off her high heel and started trying to bash the window in with it. The light turned green and we sped off. Needless to say I was humiliated in front of the chicks and the driver lectured me on yelling crap out the window. I deserved it. Finally, a story from the other side. I was on my way to college on the highway one morning in my Camaro. It's an automatic V6, so by no means is it a race car and I don't pretend it is. This kid came up behind me in a Dodge Dakota Sport and kept going back and forth beside me trying to get me to race. I shook my head no to him and after finally giving up on the challenge he takes off in front of me. After he's about 3 car lengths ahead of me, a deer jumps out in front of his truck and smashes all the plastic bits all over the highway. I just waved to him and kept going to class. Oh dear. I work up the street from a courthouse. Guy gets in his car, pee after losing his case, does like 7,000 kilometers up the street, smashes his car into another car, slides off of that and totals a brand new $50 K truck which flies backwards into a Kia behind it. Cops pull up the street in 4 seconds and arrest him for driving with an expired license. 7,000 kilometers, that is one long street. I was driving the country route back home after work one night during December. It had been snowing all day. There was probably 5 or 6 inches of fresh snow covering everything, including the roads. I was traveling approximately 40 miles per hour on this tiny snow-covered road. Cue this giant, lifted truck with smokestacks behind me. He's riding my freaking butt, like freaking hard. I was driving my 2-door little 1992 Honda Accord, and there were moments where I literally couldn't see his headlights in my side mirrors. The driver was honking and throwing a freaking tantrum, not passing me though. Finally I got annoyed by my lack of vision due to his lights and the incessant honking, so I just slowed the frick down. Finally this butthole revs his butt frick truck up and tries to speed by me. He does, right into a fricking ditch. I stopped, got out and said yeah, these roads are a little slippery. He replied with, frick you, and I got in my car and went home. Was a fun drive. Sure, I'll bite. I was driving along one day on a very busy road in my hometown. I get to this huge intersection and see a fire truck coming from my right with its lights and siren going. So, I did what everyone is supposed to do and stopped. Well, nobody else did. Literally, I'm sitting still in the center lane. Everyone else is still going. Truck trying to cross the intersection, horn blaring, sirens screaming, and nobody seems to give a frick. Eventually, the person that stopped behind me lays on her horn, guns it around me, flips me the bird and just stares right at me. Well, she didn't see that the fire truck had made its way into the intersection, and she slammed right into it. I put my car in park to go up and see if she was alright. Not an EMT or a doctor, but I do know some first aid. She hurt her head pretty bad and was bleeding a lot. Thing is, when the firefighters pulled her out, she was cursing them out for running a red light. I swear, some people. When the firefighters pulled her out, she was cursing them out for running a red light. Some people just need to fricking die. About 4 years ago, I was driving home from work when I came across two Deutschbach oil riggers, one in a regular half-ton, the other a half-ton trailer that had some weird tank on it, tailgating a poor old man. I drove beside them for a while as they proceeded to drive 2 feet off the back bumper of this old man. So I flipped them the bird, told them to pick on someone else. Well, all of a sudden the guy in the half-ton roars up past me and blasts by screaming and cursing me. He proceeds to get a half-mile in front of me, when up come the truck and trailer behind me. I drive a half-ton as well, so when I look out my rearview mirror and can't see the grill of the truck behind me, I knew he was close. Well, I'm watching the guy in front and the guy behind me. We are coming up to an intersection with a red light. We are all in the right-hand lane. The guy in front stops at the red. I've drove this route 1,000 times, so by watching the other lights I know that it is about to turn green. I continue full speed with the jack but still attached to the back bumper. Light turns green and I quickly change lanes from right to left. The guy behind me had no chance. 55 miles per hour right into the back of his buddy's truck. Trailer flipped. Tank shot off, spraying gunk everywhere. Highway closed down for 2 hours. I've never felt so good. I had a guy following really close on the highway. He would get in front of me and slow down, get behind me and tailgate, then get in front of me again. It was really late at night and there were no other cars around, and I don't know why he was driving like that. After a few miles, just as he got behind me, a piece of gravel flew out of my tire and took out one of his headlights. Turns out my 2-year-old nephew stuck a few pieces of gravel in there before someone caught him and stopped him, and one of them dislodged at the perfect moment. I was traveling on I-10 in my Silverado cruising at 75-80 mph like normal light traffic, but everyone is keeping up with me. I always tend to let these speed groups like they are my children for some reason. So here I am leading this train of carnage down the highway when I see a black Civic picking on my homies, swerving in and out being a dong. He eventually makes it to my rear bumper and I begin to investigate and figure out what is about to go down. I immediately notice that it's a younger guy in his girlfriend's car. I assume this because there is a young girl in the passenger seat, obviously uncomfortable, and there is a pink bow hanging from the rear view. I give this guy room to get around, but I apparently offended him by getting out of his way. He switches in behind me and gets even closer. I begin to sporadically let off the gas and accelerate. This sends him into rage mode, and I see that I have him right where I want him. He whips out into the other lane to attempt to jet in front of me and pull the same move. That is when I kick my V8 into gear and stay a tad bit in front of him. His girlfriend at this point is telling him to stop, and I start feeling kind of sorry for him, because I may be ruining their date night or something. I hit the brakes and let him speed off, hinking that was the end. The dude literally gets a car length in front of my truck and I heard a pop and saw smoke. A second later, sparks are flying everywhere and his tires are flying all over the road. His front tires and his rear passenger tires all simultaneously erupted at the perfect timing. I quickly tap my brakes and get in the middle of the 2 lanes and throw my hazards on, giving this guy some room to decelerate and get onto the shoulder. I was also expecting him to lose control at any moment, so I didn't want him to hit any of my children cars that are still sticking with us. A few seconds go by and the guy does nothing. He stays at 60 miles per hour, just ripping the remaining bits of rubber off and grinding down his rims. I guess his pride just would not let him admit defeat, and as soon as the next off-ramp arrived he ripped over, cutting me off, and accelerated down the ramp. He seemed to hit around 80 mph plus getting off the freeway. I will never know what happened to him, nor will I understand what was going on in his mind. My first thought was that he kidnapped the girl, but when they first rolled up she was joking around and laughing about him driving crazy. If you are reading this, dude, I just want to know why. Oh, and yes, I tried to pop cars' tires with my mind for the remainder of the trip, and I still try it occasionally. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.